Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we explore the strengths we have because of our sensitivity and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, how the heck are you? We are maybe in November. I'm recording in September and I haven't decided if I'm going to put these episodes together and shuffle things around or not. So it's fall. How's it going? I really do not want to record this episode. I thought we were done with this nonsense. I probably should go take a walk and not record, but this is just what I do. If you've listened to previous episodes, I'm going to tell you the numbers and the names because I may shuffle this around. But episode 265, When the Dog Stops Saying Hi, the Human Need for Belonging and Connection. And 267, Rupture Without Repair and the Discomfort of Being Misunderstood. There's more neighborhood drama. And y'all, I'm just tired. I'm tired of being dysregulated. And what I'm going to say in this episode is a lot of contradictory things. It's messy just because it really depends on which side of this you're on. And I don't mean necessarily this situation, but there are times when we need to speak up. There are times when we need to let people misunderstand us and sit with the discomfort of being misunderstood. And if you're autistic, that's really hard because precision, exactness, our high-driven values make it really uncomfortable. And I think it's something that's important for us to learn to do. The process of doing it just sucks and I would not recommend to anybody. But my hope is that this will talk more about some of the challenges that happened. If you are neurodivergent, chances are people in your life are also neurodivergent. Is it the same type of neurodivergence? Probably not. It could be. Do they know that they're neurodivergent? Possibly not. But I think that this is very common. I think it's important that we talk about it. And I wish I had a perfect, this is what you do and this is how you solve it. And this is not going to be one of those episodes. However, I hope that this provides some reassurance to those of you that struggle with relationships, that don't understand why all of a sudden, out of seemingly the blue, things fall apart. You want to explain yourself. It doesn't work. You feel hurt. You feel misunderstood. You feel like your values are not being understood. This is just stuff that happens and it's part of the human experience. And I do believe that if we can learn to manage and tolerate this, then that's going to help. So something happened this morning, which is probably why I'm recording. I'm checking into how dysregulated I am on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm probably at about a 6, 6.5. It's not feeling great. If you are new to the podcast, if you haven't heard any of these other things, I'm going to try and give you a really brief summary. But we have in our neighborhood a group of people. We get together a few times a year. We walk by each other's houses. Some of us have animals. We have been doing this for a few years. It was, past tense, a lovely community. And my husband has a tendency to joke about things that now he knows is not okay. And as soon as he got the message, he stopped. He did everything he could do to remediate it. He apologized to the people that this affected because one of the people in the neighborhood sent him a text and said, "Hey, you're joking. It's not okay. It's hurtful to me and my family and the people that I love." For my husband, this was the first time that he had heard this. The neighbor contends that this was an ongoing thing, and whether the neighbor did say things or not, the message was not received by my husband. I know my husband. And again, this is neurodivergent communication. And there have been times when this is an adjacent, but in the summer, there's a house that Steve and I walk by when we walk the dogs every night that has this beautiful night blooming jasmine. And every day we would walk by it, I would stop and smell and say how much I love the night blooming jasmine and how I'd love to have some under my bedroom window. My birthday's in the summer. So can you imagine what I was hoping he would get to buy me some night blooming jasmine? Did he? Of course not. Did I ask for it directly? Of course not. Did my mom buy me some? Yes. But I think that this is often how we think communication goes. I have no idea what this other person said to him, how it was said. Steve does not joke around me the way that he jokes with other people. These are kind of the guys, and the guys have a way of joking. I will say that Steve is not the only one who tells off-color jokes. They just may be of a different nature. So Steve is not the only one who was saying things that he shouldn't have. So once Steve found out, he apologized. He wanted to meet with people. He wanted to do everything he could, and we got nothing. I ended up writing a letter to everybody in the group. It's 2 couples and a single person. And I read the letter in the previous episode. I just talked about how it impacted us and, anyways, confirming that what we thought was we were uninvited from the group and this was not repairable. There was no room for rupture and repair. I thought that was the end of it. I got a text from one of the people. I read it on one of the later episodes that I told you about. And then I thought, okay, we're done. Since then, I received a text from that person's partner. And then, I don't know, a week later, I received a email from the wife of the person that this all started with. And these are just really hard to read. However, what I have to tell you is I am so clear now after getting these 2 communications from these other people with specific incidents named that this is about neurodivergent miscommunication. Now, do these other people know that they're neurodivergent? Probably not. Am I going to say anything to them? Absolutely not. We're kind of past the point of all that, and it would not be helpful at this point. But if you know, you know. What was brought up in both of these most recent communications was something that my husband said specifically. And my husband remembers saying this, and it would be the equivalent of being in a public place and sarcastically saying that you believe in things that you don't. And he said 3 things specifically, which I'm not going to repeat. And he was joking. And if you were any of these things, I'm confident you would not be proudly announcing them in public. So if you are neurodivergent and you sometimes don't understand sarcasm, if you take things literally, if you know, then you would believe these things were true beliefs that my husband had, and that my husband was declaring proudly that this is who he is, which is totally not the case. And if you have this form of neurodivergence, you either are something or you're not something, and there's nothing in between. And if this bumps up against your values, because we as autistic people are very highly value-led, then this is unacceptable, and there's no room for anything in the middle. There's no room for curiosity. There's no room for trying to understand what this was about. The belief is that you said these things, therefore you are, and that's the end of it. And it's interesting, on the night that I got the second communication and this incident was repeated again, it occurred to me, this is neurodivergent miscommunication. And I felt a sense of relief because it felt like, this isn't a personal thing. This is about neurodivergent miscommunication. And I felt like, okay, so this isn't personal. This is just how it is. And I felt okay about it. That was short-lived. The next day, it reactivated all this stuff for me. And I've just had to be okay with it. I've had to remind myself that we had this sense of community. We had this sense of belonging. The part of being misunderstood as an autistic person is just really challenging. I was called a victim in all of this, that I made myself out to be a victim. I don't know what else I could have done differently. I don't know what else we could have done differently. I'm just taking a breath here, y'all, letting my shoulders kind of sink down. And I have to be okay. We have to be okay with these are not our people. And we know who we are. We know what we believe. And we just have to be okay with that. And we are. And does it still bring some discomfort? Of course it does. And then this morning, Steve took the dogs to the park and he came home and he's like, did you check your email? I'm like, now what? And Steve said that the spouse of the partner who sent me the email a few days ago that the spouse had now sent an email to Steve. And I thought, great. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to read it. Why don't you read it and you give me the highlights? And he said, it's pretty much all the same. I said, are you sure it's not the same one that I was sent a couple of days ago? He says, no, it wasn't. And we just kind of let it go. And of course, it increased my dysregulation. I'm just over this stuff now. I deleted all of the phone numbers of the people that were involved in this, but then I've gotten communications and then I have to figure out who it is. And I can't block them now because I've already deleted the contacts. It's so bloody dysregulating every time it comes up. And I'm like, y'all, we wanted to talk to you about this when it started and we didn't get any response from you. And then I sent a letter that said, like, if you need more time or you need to process, that's communication. And now we've kind of moved beyond it and we continue to get these communications. It's very hard on my nervous system. And then Steve called back and he said, oh, it was the same email that I received Saturday. And of course, I'm sharing everything with him. So why would the partner need to send Steve the email? Because of course we share all information. And that to me is just also difficult to understand. But maybe that's my own neurodivergence. Maybe that was the partner wanting to make sure that everybody had the same communication. I don't know. These are the things that are going to sound contradicting. I think that there is a very high cancel culture right now. In some ways, I think that that is positive. In some ways, I think it's negative. I noticed this because I'm a big TikTok fan. In 2016, when Trump was president and many of us were feeling very powerless, what I noticed on TikTok is people would post injustices that were total injustices. And I think people felt so powerless that people could come together on TikTok and have a sense of power. Totally makes sense to me. And I think that that's a positive thing when we rally around for injustices. I think sometimes, having been on the side of, being canceled, so to speak, it doesn't feel very good. And sometimes it's justified calling people out. Sometimes it's not. When everybody jumps on the bandwagon, sometimes I think it's okay. Sometimes it's not. I can't tell you exactly when it's an okay thing and when it's not an okay thing. But this cancel culture can be really difficult. And I think it's also important for us to speak up for things that are not right. And often our silence is complicit. And I will say that this is not to throw my husband under the bus, but we've been talking about, we're switching rooms in the house because my son and his wife are coming to move in with us. And using the word master bedroom, master, is racist because it used to be that the master of the slaves had the master bedroom. So I've been working on saying the largest room in the house or the house in the back. And I told this to my husband. And again, if you look at this through the lens of neurodivergence, why should I change? It doesn't matter. I don't hear anybody else saying these things. That is a very common response. And in the past, when he's done that, I just figure I don't have control over what he says. I'm going to just take care of myself. And this time I said, I can't control what you say, but look at this huge mess that happened with our neighbors because you didn't think what you were saying was important. And now you have an opportunity to look at your language and how it's affecting people that you may not see, you may not know, but knowing that language is changing and you have an opportunity here. And I said, I have not said anything to you all these years because I figured it was your choice. My husband and I, in some ways, are very, very similar and in other ways, very, very different. And so I've really not known how to navigate some of these differences. And I just haven't done anything. And I said, I'm going to be more vocal about things when I hear you say things that I don't feel are appropriate anymore. And he said, you're right. And he ended up changing how he refers to the bedroom in the back of the house now. And so again, when do we say something? When do we not? When are we being complicit? I do not have any rules for y'all. I just don't. And I think that it's important for us to speak up when we can. If we don't want to speak up, there are other ways that we can advocate and do work and do things that value our values and our sense of justice. But I have to tell you, this has just been really uncomfortable and I'm just ready for it to be over. And I'm sure that there is some area of cis het privilege that I have in this. And I really don't know what else I could have done, could do. I just don't know. Hopefully, this will be the last time I'm talking about this. And a couple things I want to talk to you about. I can't remember which episode it was, but I talked about doing horse training at the ranch where I volunteer at. If you're in San Diego, Right Above Disability in Poway has a great program for disabled kids, and I think adults too, to ride horses, work with horses. And if you want to volunteer, it's a great program. So I would highly recommend it, Right Above Disability. I shared with y'all that, I don't know, a couple months ago, I went to an advanced horse training with the draft horses. Draft horses are big horses like fjords. Clydesdales are draft horses. And I was reading a little bit last night that it says that the Clydesdales are actually smaller than the fjords, but I don't think that our fjords are bigger than the Clydesdales, but they're big, stocky horses. They're just not thin. I don't mean skinny thin, but small. The legs of draft horses are much bigger. Think Clydesdales. They're just big, stocky horses. They're very solid. They also take a little bit more time to process. And so when you're leading them, it can look like they're being stubborn, but they just need more time to process. And what I had shared previously is I'd gone to this training, but I wasn't a leader. And I did some of the exercises, but then one of the exercises where you bring the horses up to the ramp where the riders mount, I didn't do it, and I didn't know if I was allowed to. And the more I didn't do it, the more disempowered I felt. And when I came back to the ranch the following week and talked to the director, she's like, you totally could have done it. You just needed to ask. And I explained, I know, I just was so disempowered, I just couldn't do it. So it was nice this time that I am a horse leader now, so I can lead the horses in lessons. And I went back to the training yesterday and worked with the draft horses. And we have a couple horses that they're just more spirited. They're more challenging. One of them did nip me once. I went to give him a nuzzle, and I thought he was leaning in for a nuzzle, and he nipped me. And he is a horse that has some pain. He's had some injury. A lot of these horses have had trauma in their past. They're very gentle, kind horses, and in lessons, they're very good. And, we need to work with them. So this horse scares me, and I did work with him with somebody else a couple of weeks ago. I may have shared about that, and that felt nice. I worked with this horse yesterday, and one of the people that's very high up in the organization was saying, they can sense your heartbeat from 6 feet away. And so if you're nervous, they're nervous. And I'm like, I don't have a very good poker body. And I just feel nervous around this horse. There was another draft horse that can be challenging to be around because she just doesn't listen. And I wanted to work with her a little bit. I worked with her in the ring and it was fine. But then working with her while we were waiting in line to bring the horses up to the ramp. So if I'd move her forward and have her stop, she'd walk 2 feet forward. So what that meant is I had to use my body to push her back 2 feet, because every time you ask them to do something and they don't, you want to correct that behavior, because if you don't, they just think they can do whatever they can. And these are big horses. So I continually had to use my body to push her backwards. And then she likes to put her head in your space, which I kind of like, but when they're working, they can't be doing that. So there's a place on their face where you just touch them with one finger that tells them you need some space. So I had to keep telling her to back off. And it was such a positive experience because I'm not afraid of her. I wasn't afraid to give her these corrections. And then going through the mounting ramp, you have to face the horse as you walk them forward. And that's a little intimidating. Both times, the person that was supervised was like, Patricia, relax your arms. Oh, okay. But I did great. And I felt so proud and so empowered to face some of the things that have felt really scary for me, because of course I'd prefer the horses where you just go, come on, let's go, where you don't have to be as assertive with them. And it's a really good skill for me to have. So it was nice to turn that around. The other thing that I want to talk about is I've shared this in a previous episode, that we have a couple that we go out to dinner with, and they always pick fancy places that have food that I don't understand, that I have to look up. The places tend to be pretty pricey, which we can afford, but that's just not generally how we eat. And, everything is always new. And my autistic side really likes sameness and doesn't like new things. And Steven started a family chat with our kids and our daughter-in-law about the menu and what he should have, and our kids were giving him input. And I not privately, but I texted Steve, just him, not on the group thing, and I said, I'm in this stage right now where this is stupid and it's expensive and I don't want to go, and I'm waiting for the stage when it's done. And I'm like, I had a great time and that was really fun. He said, new things and change and things that are unfamiliar make me really uncomfy. And we're at dinner last night. Steve does this. It's funny. The husband in this couple said this, that Steve will often like look to me and say, like, can I share what you said? And I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But he did this a couple of times, but he asked if he could share what I had texted him. And when I realized what it was, I said, yes, but let me give context first. So I said to the couple, I love going out with you. I love that it's new. I love that, all these things, but these are the hurdles that I have before we go. And we were talking about travel. This couple is doing an African safari and they invited us to go with them. It's next year, but it is way, 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 way out of our budget. But we really enjoy this couple. It's so easy being with them. And we have so much fun together, and it's just really nice. And I don't know, for those of you that are in partnerships, we've found it really hard to find other couples that we both enjoy. When we had kids, it was even harder to find kids that our kids enjoyed and then that we both liked the couple. So we're really enjoying time with this couple. Their goal, because they don't have kids, is to spend their inheritance, to spend their money before they die, where we're not quite in that place. So that is a little bit of a challenge because there are just some things about our finances and everything that's a little bit different. They're very respectful, though. That it's not like they're, encouraging us to do that. But we had talked last night about doing some traveling together, and I feel very, very safe sharing all of the things that I struggle with them around travel. And the husband loves planning things. When he planned a trip that my husband and a former friend, neighbor went on, he had daily agendas with time frames and all the things that they were going to do. Very, very, very detailed. Read between the lines. And he loves planning these things. So we were talking about, what would be a fun vacation for me? What do I like doing? What do I not like doing? And I just explained how much I struggle with the barriers. And it's even, and I use this as an example, that I do not like making phone calls. And I know that many people struggle with, they don't know what to say when they're on the phone. They forget what they need. They don't communicate clearly. And that's a real thing. That is not what I struggle with. My husband had eye surgery this week and there was a problem. And when he called in, I was sitting next to him. And I just always feel like this is the information that you need to give off the bat to get what you want. And our communication styles are different. I didn't say anything. But once I get on the phone, I'm very competent. I know what I need to say. I know what I need to do. I just do not like initiating phone calls. And I use that as an example with this couple and said, I just have all of these barriers, but if I can get past the barrier, to get to the thing, I generally enjoy myself, but it's just all the barriers. And it's interesting, the wife said to me that she just felt really sad that, I have so much fear and anxiety about change and new things. She can't imagine that. She just felt sad. And it wasn't condescending. It was just that, they're international travelers. They've been all over the world. They love doing this stuff. And I think she just feels sad that I have so many barriers and I almost need someone to just make the decisions. And so we talked about, do I want a lot of information or a little information? I said, I kind of want the Costco variety. And I'm like, I want 3 choices. And then the husband asks, like, what if there are sub choices under that? And I'm like, that's fine. Like, I want to be involved, but I don't want to be so overwhelmed. And I'm always so afraid about making the wrong decision. And because this is new and unfamiliar, that I want to have some choice, but I don't want to get overwhelmed, because when I get overwhelmed, my autism is like, see, it's too complicated. Let's just forget it. So we are planning a short trial trip. And I'm really excited and looking forward to it. And I'm sure that I will go through all of my, I don't even know what the word is, my somersaults, the things that I struggle with before traveling. And, the more I do it, the more fun I'll have. And I feel safe with this couple. I feel like I can genuinely be me and unmask and be authentic. I think that there's more neurodivergence in the group than we're acknowledging, but that's for another story. Probably not. But it's just lovely. And again, we had a lovely meal. I had a great time, tried things I would never try, and it was just fun. And there is that autistic part of me that just wants to pull back into what feels comfortable. And it's just interesting to observe. And more than 2/3, I'm sure, done with my life. I'm not saying I'm planning on going anywhere soon. I want to kind of whip it up a little bit in this last little bit that I have. My kids and I had talked about getting matching tattoos a while back, and I was excited, and then I chose not to for a number of reasons. And now I'm kind of like, if you're going to do some fun stuff, you better do it soon. So we're trying to figure out what would represent us so that we could do matching tattoos. And yeah, I just want to start having a little bit more fun and lightening up. And it means having to bump up against my resistance. And that's just got to be okay. I don't think I have anything else to share with y'all that I can think of in this moment. So I think I'm going to wrap it up. If you are interested in working with me, if you don't know, I was a licensed therapist for 17 years. I now provide online coaching globally to anybody, anywhere in the world. All the work I do is online. I work with neurodivergent folks. If you suspect you're neurodivergent, if you're self-identified, or you've been diagnosed with ADHD, autism, OCD, anxiety, depression, I have all of those things, plus some PDA, pervasive drive for autonomy, a little rejection sensitivity dysphoria, RSD. I gotcha. We can work on boundaries, parenting, really identifying who you are, unmasking, relationships, friendships. Yeah. You can reach out to me at unapologeticallysensitive.com. If you want to send me an email, it's unapologeticallysensitive@gmail.com. I guess I should have said in the beginning of all this that this is my perspective about what's going on. I'm entitled to my perspective. If you talk to these other people, they're going to have their own perspective. Can more than one perspective be true? Absolutely. And I'm just going to share what I know is true for me. I think that's it. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's how your brain is wired. You have a right to be misunderstood. You have a right to be loved and understood. You have a right to stim. You have a right to be authentically you. There is no thing as too much. You are just perfect exactly as you are. You're living in a world that was not made for us. And so how do we find our community, get clearer on who we are and how we're wired and what we need so that we feel better about the lives that we're leading? I think that's it. Have a blessed day.